Well, here we are. Welcome back. So we're on Module 6, Week 6, Module 6, and now we're talking about genetics. And just to remind you, kind of going back to the very first introduction to this course, I talked about how we're going to be looking at biological function. And once again, in my very first introduction video, I talked about how the study of biology is vast, and there are many different fields within that scope of biology, but we talked about two specific ones. We talked about biochemistry and we talked about genetics. And we said that these two different fields within biology historically didn't talk to each other, if you will. They didn't think they had a whole lot in common up until the discovery of the DNA double helix by Watson and Crick, which then we discovered that those genetic traits are carried on DNA, and that DNA codes for proteins, and that once again is the field of molecular biology. Once again, it's been a couple of weeks since I brought this topic up. It was the very first introduction video of the course. But what you realize, what have we done so far? Well, we've introduced biology, the scientific method, and then we studied introductory biochemistry. Then we talked about cytology, or in other words, the study of the cell. So we talked about the cell and the cell organelles, which is going to have all that DNA that I've already mentioned, as well as the proteins. So all this is going to be going on at the cellular level. Now we're going to delve into this other component here, the genetics. All right, and once again, we're going to divide up this chapter over two modules. So this first module in genetics, we're going to talk about genotype and phenotype. And I should stop for a second. If you find my eyes looking down in all these videos, it's because my computer is right here with all my PowerPoint notes. So please forgive me if I keep looking down. But first of all, we're going to talk about genotype and phenotype, and we're going to discuss the difference between the two, how genotype are the actual genes that you get from your parents, those that are on your DNA. You get one set of traits from your mom and one set of traits from your dad. Those traits are carried within the DNA that you get from both of them. And we're going to talk about the physical manifestation of those traits, which is the phenotype. And the example here we're going to find out is, do you have an unattached earlobe versus an attached earlobe? So the genotypes are represented by these big E's and little e's we're going to find out. These what's called alleles, what have you. And then the phenotype is that physical manifestation. All right? Now, once we get that concept down, we're going to talk about 1 and 2 trait inheritance. In other words, we're going to look at how those traits are inherited from your parents and what is the likelihood of different phenotypes. In other words, depending on what you're inheriting from your parents, what is the likelihood of a certain physical manifestation? And you should be able to calculate the probability of us both the specific genotypes, which is really the letters we're looking at here, as well as the different probabilities for the actual phenotypes. And in this example right here, what is the probability of having freckles? That would be the phenotype. And then once again, we're going to see how these traits are passed from parent to offspring. So that's it. Let's go ahead and get started.